Welcome to Session 5 with the Preventive Legal Advocacy Virtual Summit. Session 5 is Keys to Holistic Prevention Work, how social workers and parent partners help drive families towards successful outcomes. Our panelists today include Brian Jones, who will be moderating. Brian is a staff attorney with Dependency Advocacy Center in California. We also have Pari Lucero, parent partner and parent helpline administrator at Los Angeles Dependency Lawyers. Alondra DeSantiago, social worker with the Corridor Program at DAC in California, and Gildardo Armador, mentor parent with First Call for Families program at DAC.
I'm Brian Jones, again, working with the First Call for Families team at the Dependency Advocacy Center, or DAC, in Santa Clara County, and we're based in San Jose. I've been with DAC for almost a year now, and I bring my experience working with parents in Brooklyn Family Court who are involved in abuse and neglect cases or Article 10 cases, along with custody, visitation, and restraining order cases, along with CPS investigations. Getting to DAC, just as a brief history of its efforts in prevention work, DAC started off only providing representation in open juvenile dependency cases to parents and some children. Within the past several years, we've expanded with our prevention services to provide support upstream, because as we all know, foster care placement is harmful to families and it creates more problems than it solves. In our prevention work, we use our experience and knowledge base from our representation in open dependency cases to inform the work that we do with parents. And we develop those insights on an ongoing basis as changes happen in the county's approach to investigations and court case filings. And right now, we're very much seeing changes in their approach, given some headlines in the news, which I'm happy to talk about in more detail if people want to know about that. But turning more specifically to DAC's prevention work, today we have on this panel representation from DAC's two programs, First Call for Families and Corridor. The First Call team works with parents only, and it's an attorney-led team that includes social workers and parent advocates, though our parent partners are called mentor parents at DAC. Our team has 2 attorneys, 2 social workers, and 3 mentor parents. Because we're an attorney-led team, nobody on our team is a mandated reporter. And in terms of what our work looks like on a general basis, which you're going to hear more about in detail, it involves helping clients address barriers to family stabilization through safety planning, peer support, resource referrals, and sometimes collateral legal assistance. In addition to our work with clients, we do outreach in the community, and we provide Know Your Rights presentations to community members, along with presentations to mandated reporters, informing them of what happens after they make a CPS report. Those presentations also include encouragement to make referrals to our team when they feel like they need to make a referral to CPS. So I'd like to say that my work as an attorney with First Call is solely prevention work, but we also represent our prevention clients in the initial stages of a dependency case. And as it happens, I have 2 cases on in court this morning, and that's where I'm logging in from right now as we speak. Thankfully, the internet is here pretty good most of the time, although unfortunately, I could not say the same when I worked in Brooklyn Family Court. But let's get to the session properly. This session features who I think are the major keys to actually driving parents toward their desired outcomes, hence the title of the presentation, and I hope everybody got the metaphor that I was trying to go for there. Those major keys are social workers and their parent partners. Though it's true that the legal advice that I provide to parents is appreciated by them and it's helpful for most people, what I've seen in my work is that social workers and parent partners provide the actual support in practice that helps parents make significant life changes. So for today's panel, I'm going to be serving as moderator, and I'm going to turn it over to the other participants so they can introduce themselves and we can get started. So I'm going to start with my fellow team member, Gilbert, after I change my sound situation. Then we'll go with Alondra, and then we'll go with Pari. Give me 1 second. All right, you should be on microphone. Okay, can everybody hear Gilbert okay? Awesome. All right, so yeah, so maybe just like introduce yourself, talk about your role on the First Call team, and maybe a bit about your background.
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Gildardo Armador. I'm a parent mentor for First Call for Families. I've been with First Call for a little over a year now. A little bit about my history. I come with a lot of lived experience. I myself was in the CPS system. My daughter was removed from my care. I did the legwork and fought vigorously for 18 months to be reunified with my daughter. And it was something that was a very traumatic time in my life, and I didn't know who to go to or who to talk to or what to expect. And that's a big reason why I'm in the role today, is because I want to make sure people are informed, people understand. That way they have the full benefit of reunifying with their children or staying together as a family. Yes, so.
Cool. Cool. All right. Let's go to Alondra DeSantiago next, who is with our corridor program. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about corridor.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. My name is Alondra, and I am a social worker in the corridor program. And what's unique to the corridor program is that we work with parents that are also criminal justice involved and are on probation or pretrial services. And we work with a range from prevention, where there is no involvement with the Department of Family and Children's Services, to parents that might be involved in a voluntary non-court basis, to parents that have open juvenile petitions filed. We are able to provide services to parents that are custodial or working towards reunification. One of the unique things about our program is that we do collaborate with the probation department, and we collaborate with the criminal justice department as well to be able to advocate. Most of the times we see that there is a correlation between criminal justice involvement and dependency involvement. And most of the times the underlying criminal charges are also the leading cause for the dependency involvement. So we do link parents to appropriate resources and community-based services to obtain self-sufficiency and stability. We do develop safety plans in the event of relapse, arrest, or incarceration, and we provide peer support through guidance, as well as a mentor parent in our program. We offer legal consultations through the attorneys and advice regarding child welfare system, and in some cases can also provide limited scope legal representation on matters that are directly related to family preservation and child protection. And a lot of these may be legal guardianship, or dissolving a legal guardianship, or providing consultations regarding custody and visitations.
Cool. Thanks, Alondra. So now we will take us from Northern California to go to Southern California. Pari, maybe tell us a little bit about Ladle and the work you do there at the helpline.
Good morning. My name is Pari Lucero, and I'm the parent partner for, I work for Ladle's Parent Hopeline. So we have five law firms at Ladle. I am not in a law firm. The law firms are representing parents after a petition is filed, and I work for the Parent Hopeline, which is pre-petition services while the parents are in investigation phase. And the Parent Hopeline was started about 3.5 years ago by my boss, Dennis Smeal. It was his experience being a staff attorney for many years and working his way up in the ranks to an executive director, that there were just so many cases that were coming into the courts that could have been prevented with, say, some housing assistance or maybe a little assistance from a 12-step fellowship. So the Hopeline was born, and we get our referrals from various ways, either our website, word of mouth, clients that we've helped before. Maybe now they have a relative that has an open investigation. I'm constantly going out into the communities and talking about our agency. I have several substance abuse, residential and intensive outpatient programs that have me in on a monthly basis to present to staff and to their clients. We also have a Know Your Rights committee at Ladle, and we go out and present to, we just recently presented to NCAD and the National Council of Alcohol and Drug Addiction, and then also the Department of Mental Health here in LA County. We support presented at the supervisor staff meeting, their monthly staff meeting. And then I'm also working with various domestic violence shelters and schools and hospitals, Gardena Hospital, Martin Luther King Hospital. These are all in very disproportionate areas of LA. So we get our resources or referrals from various places. And I do this work because I too had a case. I'm a lived experience expert, as they're calling it now. I had a case in 2006. My sixth child was born, the first one out of the six, I delivered her under the influence. And that was my first day learning about the system. I had many, many investigations, 16 up to that point, and never an open case. And so the day my daughter was born and detained at the hospital started my journey into what I'm doing now. So
Cool. Thanks a lot for that, Pari. So in terms of how the flow of this presentation, so I'm going to ask the panelists kind of a few different questions so you can get a more concrete idea of what their work looks like on an everyday basis. People can, as they have been all day, put any questions in the Q&A, and we will get to them in the last 10 minutes or so. And of course, after the presentation, because you might have a lot of questions that we might not be able to answer, you have our contact information in the agenda, so you can always reach out to us individually if you want to know more about our programs or about the work that we do. So let's get started with Alondra. I think a question that I think is good to start off with is kind of more big picture theoretical and thinking about given that like DAC, Ladle, a lot of prevention programs start with organizations that do in-court work. What for you, Alondra, as a social worker specifically, how is the focus of your prevention work different than, for instance, like a social worker in court at DAC?
The major difference I would say is that we focus a lot on interactions between systems. A lot of the times there's collaboration between different, like the criminal justice system, dependency system, and a lot of the times they don't necessarily talk to each other. So I think that we're able to link, that communication and provide updates, vice versa, from the criminal justice side to the dependency side and advocate on the behalf. Sometimes we have clients that are already doing a lot of activities on their case plan for dependency court, and they're being asked to do the same for criminal court. And sometimes we can advocate and be able to bridge that communication to utilize what they're already doing to count towards criminal court. There's also the difference that a lot of the times that miscommunication or no communication creates barriers to some of the work that can be done in a dependency scope or under for example, a non-court voluntary case where there might be a criminal protective order in the criminal justice court, but they're deferring for a dependency court to be able to modify or create some type of visitation or contact. And when there is no dependency court involvement, that makes it harder because now we're just deferring to criminal court. And sometimes because the courts have been really impacted, it pushes those court dates back. And that creates a real barrier for parents to be able to have any interaction with their child.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess Gilbert, for you on the first call team, maybe talk a little bit about how your role in the prevention context might be different than a mentor parent for our in-court work.
Yes, the difference between the mentor parent for prevention is a lot more on the ground. It's a lot more upfront on the front lines because ultimately they're not involved with the system quite yet, and they do have a lot of things to work on. And so connecting with them early on is important, and getting them the help and the resources and basically peer supporting them through that journey is a big importance.
Yeah, and then just kind of to follow up on that a little bit and kind of based on one thing I've seen in working with you as a mentor parent, I previously haven't worked with mentor parents like in doing the professional work that I've done or any work that I've done previously. And I think your caseload only includes fathers on them. And as you know, many people might know, the child welfare system for dads can in a lot of circumstances look a lot different than it does for moms. So I was wondering if you could just share, like in your experience as a mentor dad so far, what are some challenges that you've seen in your work when it comes to fathers specifically?
When it comes to the challenges with fathers in the system is they are not they feel a lot more like they're not part of that system or part of the family or have the resources or support that you typically mothers have. And so it's a lot more frustrating. It's a lot more, it gives them a lot more anxiety. It's a little bit more difficult for them to engage out in the public. And that's the biggest key for being able to connect with fathers, is to express to them and show them that as difficult as it may be, it's still possible and it's still within their reach.
Cool. And then let's kind of get to you, Pari. For your role on the helpline, how is that different, and how does your work look different as it does for the people at Ladle who do the in-court work?
So for me, I work prevention, so I am putting boots on the ground a little bit more often because I want to go out. I want to get in face to face if possible, and virtually if I can, to help this parent to build that relationship of trust, so that the parent and I can actually start creating a bond, a working bond together, where that parent just going to trust me enough just to be able to gauge what that parent is. I ask the parent, what do you feel you need? What do you feel that you need? Why do you feel that you're under this investigation? Not what did the department tell you, but what do you feel you need? And then based on their answer, I try and find some lived experience that I can assist them with. The parents, so that I'm sharing my experience of how I got out of a similar situation. And we go from there. The parent partners that work in the law firms already, they have a case plan that's been assigned by a judge. We don't. The parent and I that are dealing with the investigation, we don't have a case plan assigned by a judge. We have my lived experience, my supervising attorney's information because I'm consistently consulting with supervising attorneys. And we have social workers on staff. And one of our social workers on staff was actually a DCFS employee here in LA County first. And she wrote a book called The Language of Fear. And there's a Netflix special out right now too, and I can't remember the name of it, but she's amazing. And it's a fine line between what the parent partners with open petition cases are working on with their parents as to where I am with an investigation, because my goal is to close the investigation and completely mitigate any of the concerns the department has. We don't have time for a case plan that's going to take 6 months. We have 30 days or less. So that's the difference. And one more thing I wanted to say real quick, Brian, thank you, is that we are not mandated reporters as well, because we are under legal. So
Yeah, and kind of picking up on something you just mentioned with the social workers, I wanted to hear each of you talk a bit about what your interactions with CPS look like in the prevention context. So maybe we can start with Alondra on that.
Yeah, it could be very involved or it can be minimally involved, depending on just the engagement. I think that, because we're not mandated reporters, we're able to build that connection and really get to know, like, what are those struggles, really identify those needs, kind of how Pari was mentioning, and create a safety plan that's really unique to them, that might not be what the department wants or what the department approves of, but it works for them. So a lot of the times I think too, I was thinking about this, what's the difference between the prevention is that it's client-led. It's really based up to what they'd like to work on, what they identify as a need, which is different than being told what you need to do. I think that's the beauty of prevention, where we're able to kind of flow, and it's not constructed by boundaries of what you need to do. I think it's very open. But in regards to working with the department, we are able to advocate in CFT meetings. That's a lot of the work that we do. A lot of the voice, a lot of change happens from those CFT meetings. Where also a lot of the times what I've seen working with the dual justice involved is that social workers are also in a position to express minors' wishes. So a lot of the times we're able to collaborate with the social workers and work on if a parent or if a child wants to return back to mother in a voluntary case, they're able to express that concern to like the district attorney or those wishes. So we're able to collaborate in a more effective way to get the same outcome that's not necessarily in a dependency court, but more outside of that scope.
Cool. Yeah, Gilbert, maybe also just speak a bit on what your interactions with CPS looks like on your cases.
Yes, it's not that much different than Alondra was saying. It can go either one way or the other. One of the things being a parent mentor or peer mentor to the client going into a CFT is basically informing them of how a CFT works and what to expect. Being able to sit there and support and advocate for them as well, communicate when they need advocating, and giving them that security that they're okay, that they're not alone.
Yeah, yeah. Then I think connecting it to what you talked about before, like I think sometimes with your clients, it can be hard even getting them to show up to a meeting with CPS. So is that a challenge for you? And like how have you dealt with maybe them even wanting to communicate with CPS or go to a meeting with them, do a case plan and take them seriously?
Yes. So a lot of clients do have issues with structured departmental environments. They feel that they're not able to communicate well with them. If in the event that they don't communicate well, then they have the authority to remove their children, which is a big barrier. And ultimately communicating with them, we express that this is a meeting where communication can be had and they can voice their opinions or their concerns and ultimately get answers as well.
Cool. Yeah. And Pari, can you speak a bit on your interactions with CPS and your role at the helpline?
Sure. So my interaction, I hate public speaking, you guys. So thank you so much for bearing with me. So I can there's either a positive or a negative. I agreed with Alondra when she said something about it kind of depends on what social worker you're working with. I feel that there can be very strong bias against me in the beginning. The minute that I introduce myself to a social worker, which is usually on the telephone, as supporting this parent as a peer support or a parent advocate, it all implies that I've been there before. And so some social workers from that very moment on, they're judging or they're biased towards me, and they either will refuse to talk to me or they make a big show about getting a release from the parent. Some of them won't even allow me to get a parent on a three-way call and give verbal. They want it in writing. And so that's a social worker that I'm going to have barriers with. On the flip side of that, I have a very positive response from, there's a big shift in LA County right now, a big shift and a big focus on not detaining children if at all possible. So there are quite a few emergency response social workers that I've been coming in contact with, I would say in the last year, that have shifted their perception, and they actually get excited when they find out when I call to introduce myself. And maybe I'm calling because they've already been to a house and left business cards 2 or 3 times. They've sent a letter. They've gone to the children's school and they cannot get this parent to respond. So when I call and introduce myself and let them know that I'm responding because this parent has found us on our website or for whatever reason they found us, and I'm trying to set up an initial interview between the social worker and the child, or the social worker and the parent, or sometimes the child and the parent. So at that point, the social workers really appreciate my role. And then also the other area is in resources. So sometimes social workers are not happy with the fact that I'm very resourceful and I'm suggesting resources to my parents quickly, because what those resources are doing is providing more community support to this family so that they can mitigate the concerns of the department. And this will actually frustrate some social workers. It really depends on the social worker you get. It depends on their supervisor. It depends on, somebody mentioned swag earlier. It's how I present myself, right? So sometimes it becomes a quandary for me, you know, because how much do I reveal to a social worker on that parent's behalf in order to get the social worker to buy into what the parent is trying to accomplish on their own. And yeah, so I'll stop there.
Cool, yeah. And just to make sure there's enough time for questions, I'm going to skip one of the questions I had. So I just want to maybe get to what I think is my favorite question is maybe everybody can just give one example just to make it concrete for everybody in the audience of one case for you that has been a success that like really fully shows the prevention work that you do. And we can start with Alondra.
One case that comes to mind is when working with a family, working with mom in a voluntary family maintenance case where you know, there was involvement with the department. Mom was working with them on a voluntary basis, was doing drug testing, attending parenting classes. Then she was pulled over by law enforcement, arrested for a DUI, and that voluntary case turned into a open dependency case. This was a fast track case. The children were both under 3. So she had 6 months to have some sort of change. While we were working with her, we were supporting her through her criminal case. Eventually, the criminal case was dismissed. She was open and engaged with her social worker. So I do think that the engagement with the social worker makes a huge difference on the outcome of the case. Her social worker was supportive. Her social worker worked with her on really reunifying, addressing the concerns. Mom was on probation. She was checking in with her probation officer. She has since then successfully completed probation, so she's no longer on probation. She attended AA meetings every day for 6 months and continues to do so. She's attending support groups, and really through making that change, she was able to reunify with her children within that 6 months. She's now able to have tools in her belt to successfully learn how to cope with a lot of the trauma that she was dealing with. I think she really utilized our peer mentor. They had a great connection. Think that it was the peer mentor and that lived experience piece is very important, and it does make a difference when you're able to have someone there to shows up no matter what, that takes that phone call no matter what. And just, you know, when you're in a very lonely place and you don't have anyone, you need someone. And I think that's kind of the metaphor for our program, a corridor. You have a long haul and you can just see a light at the end of the tunnel. And we're there to support parents. And I think that a lot of the collaboration between the criminal justice court and the dependency court, bridging that gap is essential to having a great outcome on both. I think Pari mentioned really connecting parents to community resources. And sometimes when we attend these CFT meetings and we tell parents that you don't need the department to refer you to a parenting class, you can take a parenting class that's in the community. You don't need the department oversight. You can attend these support groups that can be, you know, self-referred, or we can walk you through the process of referring yourself and doing it together. But there's resources in the community that you can access that don't need the department referral or oversight, which is a lot of the times kind of how Pari mentioned the social workers might not really be on board with that, but there's other departments that can, you know, they're already working with probation. Probation can drug test. We don't need the department to be involved for these. There's other providers that can also provide these resources and be there to support in a much longer term than what the department is there to offer.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds like great work on that case. Gilbert, I am already familiar with the case you're going to bring up as a success because all of our cases are together. But can you let the people know one first call case that you've had that kind of shows the work that you do with your clients?
Absolutely.
Success.
Absolutely. So I've been working on a case for around 10 months now. It was a father who at the time was staying in a shelter, and he was thrust into being a single father. He got custody of his daughter, and he was on a VFM, which was not tailored to him at the time, but due vigorous work through our department, we were able to assist him in communication with the department to tailor it to his specific issues and needs. And once we were connected and he felt a lot more secure and supported by our team, we were able to assist him in building the foundation to the wonderful prevention that we do to give his daughter a better life. He wound up doing his VI SPDAT with our assistance. We got him into a place. We helped him, you know, get his voucher. We connected him to resources to get furniture for his home. And one of the biggest accomplishments for him was able to give his daughter a bedroom to all of her own. And this is coming, you know, from a shelter to a home to getting connected to resources for his daughter's therapy. And it's just, today, they're doing amazing. They're very thankful that they were able to get in touch with a great organization to assist them in that. And yeah, they're succeeding immensely at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to understate the role and effect Gilbert has had in helping this dad who had not been a primary caregiver for his daughter be thrust into that role. You know, again, as Gilbert said, he had a voluntary family maintenance plan, so a non-court case plan that was tailored to the other parents' concerns. Once our team got on the case, very shortly after, they actually said, you know what, we're going to close this voluntary case plan. And since then, again, Gilbert got him stabilized from being at a single shelter to being at a shelter with his daughter, to now being housed, all within the same year. So it was remarkable work that he's done, and his client's daughter is very cute, so it's a great case. Pari, round us out with a success of your own as well.
Okay, well, I've taking over 3,000 calls in the last couple of years, but really putting boots on ground, and you want me to pick one case, it's really hard. I can tell you the first case ever, which is my boss's favorite, and it actually did have a petition filed, but what I was able to do as the whole time was prevent the detention or the removal of the children. It was domestic violence that happened between mother and father. Father had a few too many beers. He threw something at mom. The oldest sibling was 16, dialed 911. And so there was referral generated, and the social worker that showed up did not pay attention to the fact that mother had hearing issues and spoke a different language. English was not her native language. The social worker had a very thick Jamaican accent. So hearing issues, accents, this mother did not understand what was going on. And basically what the social worker told her when she showed up right after the police left and arrested father is, if you do not go to court tomorrow and follow through with this restraining order and not let father back into the home, I'm coming back and I'm taking all of your kids, all 5 of your kids. So at that point, being able to work with this family to help prevent the detention. The social worker actually called the family to the office about 2 weeks later. In the meantime, the father's idea was, let me get the family out of LA. So he took the whole family on a road trip, and they were calling me from Oregon. They were traveling and not going to be in California anymore. They were just going to be off the grid. And I was able to talk father into coming back. Father enrolled in some Parents Anonymous and some different some AA classes or AA meetings. And when the social worker called them to the department to take pictures of the kids, she had a warrant to detain in her hand, and I was able to mitigate that, to mediate the situation and prevent the detention by agreeing to assist father in temporarily removing himself from the home and staying with his mother at another home. So the 5 children did not get detained that day. The case closed in just a little under a year. A petition was filed, but they remained in the home with mom. My favorite are cases that have my history, which would be a little bit of DV and a little bit of substance abuse, or quite a bit. So being able to help assist mothers that have had previous trauma and are currently pregnant, and they know what's coming, to be able to assist those parents. That I can't tell you a specific case, but you can see I get choked up. There's been quite a few. And very, very recently, we do take calls from parents that look on our website, and we had a father that wanted to file a 388 so his visitation could be increased. His child was with a family member in legal guardianship, and he wanted his visitation increased. Well, 2 years later, this same father, being sober for the last 2 years, had a new baby with the ex-girlfriend, and they were living in separate places. And so now the father called me again. He said there's an investigation. She delivered the baby at home, and I think she's on fentanyl, and I'm still in my sober living. So helping that father to go from sober living, getting him a place, just like you did, your cohort there, Brian, getting him into a place and helping that baby get released to him, getting a crib, getting his parents cribs and diapers at 10 p.m. before a social worker comes. That fills my heart. So yeah, there's quite a few cases to talk about. Way too much time. It would take way too much time. But
Yeah. I think we just wanted on this panel to give people like a general sense, and I really appreciate you, Pari, Alondra, and Gilbert for kind of your participation today. I think the voices of social workers, the voices of especially people with lived experience, aren't voices that are necessarily heard in this space, and especially because you guys aren't trained to and expected to speak all the time like attorneys are in court. So I just really appreciate you guys taking on this challenge, and I thought you all did a great job of talking about our work. I see we have a couple of questions, but only a couple of minutes. So Emily, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, that's fine, Brian. We have the 10-minute break, so if we run over a little bit, I think we'll be okay. But I did want to, I'll relay a couple of these questions that are coming in since you were just talking about being in court. Deborah Collins was asking, and we hear this a lot, but with the parent mentor supports that you all are providing, are you ever at risk of being subpoenaed to testify against the parent, or do you have certain client legal privilege protections? I think that has to do with them being part of the legal team, but if you guys want to address that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's interesting because well, one, again, like personally speaking, it hasn't been tested, but I will say when the department has filed petitions, and actually the petition I'm in court for here today, the allegations will mention a lot, basically mention our social worker and our parent partner and what they've been saying at meetings with CPS, because my sense is, and this is my perspective specifically, when our team gets involved and exercises rights that parents have an investigation or ask follow-up questions to CPS, that they see that as a barrier and they see that as negative. And so they mention that a lot in reports. In terms of testimony, we don't have a ton of trials here in dependency court in California for reasons that relate to the law here. So that's not a big concern for us, although I have heard that sometimes parent partners have testified for their clients. But I would imagine that if they were subpoenaed, then we would probably push back due to ethics rules, as stated in the question.
Yeah, and I would note that's usually how it's handled nationally at other programs. Some things can be dependent on state law, but as being part of the legal team, generally any testimony from that individual would be barred by the same rules that an attorney would not be required to testify against their client.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We did have some questions about the social workers as mandated reporters. I know Rob kind of chimed in on that. We all hear that a lot. I think under California, do you all have Brian, do you have a specific law that exempts any members of your legal team? Some states do.
That I'm not sure of, but Sarah Cook from DAC will be presenting later today, so this could be a question for her. But it is the general sense that because we are a legal organization, that's why they're not mandated reporters.
Okay. And I think the last kind of general question was from Rob, and he was asking about pushback from the agency when you show up for the CFTs, we call them family team meetings, but when you show up to these things, I know you guys talked about it, it depends, right, from person to person, but how do you handle that?
Yeah, so what's most interesting is there are some times where I'll ask to participate in CFTs, and so they'll be like, you're an attorney, so you definitely can, although I somehow finagled my way into one CFT and I got good feedback because I wasn't combative as they expect attorneys to be. But yeah, it's like there are times where I've asked to meet with social workers and then they say I need to loop in an attorney or other people. And that can just create a lot more contention. And I'll say that there are times when, again, they'll reach out to one of our clients, and then when the client says I need to have a social worker or mentor parent also available at a CFT or for a home visit, they'll say, why can't you do this on your own? Or like, we want to hear from the client, even though it's their right to do so. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
Yeah, I can add a little bit. Yeah, so the pushback, there are times where we do get pushback, and one of the biggest keys is, composure. Like I explained to my clients, composure, respect, and communication. Because ultimately, a lot of the times, it all depends on this social worker, and it all depends on the biasness of the level, but that's the biggest key is communication, patience, and just being able to go in there and discuss what needs to be discussed, concerns that need to be addressed, and make sure the client feels like he is ahead of the curve, basically knowledgeable and understands what to expect and how to approach any questions in the CFT.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, could I speak to the CFT? So the CFT in California, that stands for Child and Family Team Meeting, and that's usually a meeting where the social worker will call it, the parent can call it, even though they're not usually aware, but it's for clients that already have open dependency cases. And you meet with the social worker, the parent can bring any supports that they want, providing the social worker is aware of it in advance. And oftentimes what we hear in LA County is if you want to bring a peer support from Ladle, then we have to have our county council present, which then creates a problem, right? Because county council doesn't want to have to be in a CFT meeting with the parent to talk about their visitation. So there's that. And the pushback often comes from, okay, so helping a parent prepare for a CFT meeting is really important because the first questions that the social workers ask is, tell us your story. And so for me, that can be a very traumatic event. That puts me behind the ball. Now so the rest of the meeting, I'm feeling shame and not worthy. And so being able to build these parents up and help them create or navigate through their own story, right? This is why I got here. This is what I'm doing now. This is who I am today. And that empowers a parent. And then helping that parent draft questions or goals before the social workers start asking, what is the goal? We help the parents, or I help the parents prepare, our other parent partners help their parents prepare before they go into that meeting. So they're not just going in and feeling blindsided.
Yeah.
Great answer. Thank you, Pari. All right, guys, well, we're a little over on time, and I'm going to cut us over to our break before the next session, just so everybody has a chance to stretch and move about. But thank you all so much for an excellent presentation and for sharing your expertise with us today. That was really wonderful. I think there is one more question in the chat. If you guys get a chance, maybe pop an answer in there on that one as to confidentiality of those CFT meetings. But thank you all very much. And we will resume at 1:20, so in about 5 minutes. I'm going to put the slide up and we will see you all again shortly. Thanks, guys.